Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. I've been posting a lot of long videos recently and I thought I need to mix it up a bit, and I haven't done a video response for a while. And Tony over at ElectricAdventures has actually just posted one of his many updates, and as part of it he actually posed a question out there. What are your 3 favorite arcade games? What did you put the most money into back in the day? And it's interesting, as I thought about it, my favorite video game arcade machines, I didn't really end up putting that much money into them, and there's a few reasons why. So I then thought, well, what are the 3 machines that I put the most money into? And surprisingly, they're not really sort of the top tier classics. They're really good games, but they're not anything that, well, I was really surprised when I thought of this list. So I thought, all right, I'm going to give a video response and talk about not only the original machine, but also the home ports that I picked up, because I'm not going to put any more money into them. The reason these are not like Pac-Man or Space Invaders or Missile Command or Donkey Kong or any of those ones is, in that time in the arcades from like 79 to 84-ish, I had very little money. We didn't have a lot of spare cash kicking around, and if I saw an arcade, I'd maybe have $1 to spend. So that's 4 games. So even the ones that I really, really love, I would play them once and then move on, maybe play it a second time or play something else. So that's why these are actually games of like the late 80s, early 90s era. Because by then, I actually had disposable cash. There were still arcades around, and a friend of mine used to go religiously. And I was like, yes, I will go with you. And we would just fire a lot of cash into these 3 particular games. So let's go in reverse order. Number 3 was actually Smash TV. Now, this is a great game, but it really, I think it's a game that it sort of builds on, if you've got a buddy with you and you're playing your way through the game, it's a million times better than just playing it on your own. There's that kind of keep going, see if you can get to the end boss, go through the maze, fight all the things, collect all the prizes, and then the really kind of the thing that would trigger my risk-reward reaction would actually be there's right at the end of the level they would score up. Here's all the things you captured, here's all the prizes you grabbed, here's all the TVs and VCRs and dollar bills and all that kind of stuff, and you get this giant big jackpot building up and then be like this yes feeling at the end of it. So Smash TV was just a really addictive, fun game to play, and my buddy would be like, come on, let's put a few more quarters in there, let's just get to the next part. So Smash TV was definitely number 3, and I love it. Now, for home port versions, I've got it for the Super Nintendo, and that's really good because on the Super Nintendo you've got the ability, you've got the D-pad on one side and you got the A, B, X, Y buttons to do your shooting. So that's great, but as a home game, I mean, unless you're playing it with somebody, it falls a little flat. It's not as much fun playing Smash TV on my own, so I actually don't really end up playing this cartridge very much, even though the original game got a heck of a lot of quarters out of me back in the day. And then number 2 is very similar to Smash TV, and that is T2, the arcade game. Absolutely loved this when it came out. It was in the nearby arcade, and it had the 2 big, rifle machine guns going there. Me and a friend, a different friend for half of it, but same guy for Smash TV for the other half of the time. We'd be sitting there, we'd be plugging in our quarters and we'd be shooting away. And I mean, of course, you've got, again, that feeling of we just got to get to the next sort of stage. And it didn't have the prize thing that Smash TV had, but it was very, it was a visceral feeling, like you wanted to defeat the enemies, get past all the Terminators, get John to the next stage so that he could escape, etc., etc. And I remember many a day just going in there and plugging in some quarters and shooting down all those Terminators. Absolutely loved T2. For the home port, now I've got it for the Super NES again, and specifically I got it because it works with the Super Scope. This is an amazing combination with one major flaw, and I'm going to do a video about that someday. I would have thought this would have been, like, this is the reason I got the Super Scope, is to play Terminator 2, and it's good, it's a lot of fun, Again, like Smash TV, you kind of need two players because I think it's very similar to the original arcade experience. So it's kind of the waves of bad guys are assuming there's two of you playing. One person on his own with a super scope, it's all right, except for this major thing I'll talk about. But I don't really end up playing it all that much. There is another T2 that I do play more often than I would have guessed, but that'll be for another video again. But hands down, and by a long stretch, the #1 game that got the most money out of me ever is Final Fight. In 1990, when this game came out, I was so blown away by this thing. I just thought, wow, look at the size of the sprites, the detail, the feeling of the action kung fu combat stuff that you're doing, the punching. I was always like a Cody player myself. And my friend, who we went religiously, he'd always play Guy. No, actually, come to think of it, no, he's more of a Hagar guy. He really loved doing those windmill things that Hagar was always doing. And basically, our Friday nights for about 3 months solidly in the end of 1990 is we would get together, go for a pizza, go to this one arcade, and I'm going to try and find where that arcade is now because I know the building still exists. And plunk down $5. I think the arcade we had, this is in that era when they had to take tokens. You couldn't just put a quarter into it. You had to go up and give me 4 tokens for this $1, etc. So we just walk in with a $5 bill and say, here, give me 20 tokens. And the guy we'd go over to Final Fight and we would plug away and we would finish the game. We loved Final Fight. I mean, that game, let me just think. So every week for 3 months, you're talking 12 different, let's say about a dozen different trips to the arcade, $5 a time. That's $60 we spent on that game just for Final Fight. Yeah, I love me some Final Fight. That was definitely by far the game that got the most quarters out of me. And I've talked about this before. Home ports for Final Fight are they're very much a mixed bag. It does exist for the Super NES, but you can only play either Cody or Hagar. Then a modded version, or another Japanese maybe only version, I can't remember, came out where you could play either Guy or Hagar. You couldn't play any of the 3 characters. And they got rid of Roxy and Poison. They replaced them with Billy and Sid. It's a whole, that's stuff for another video. And then they did finally do it for the Sega CD. But although Roxy and Poison were restored, they've got these weird biker shorts down to their knees. The graphics are a little weird color. The music is a lot better, but I don't have a Sega CD, and I just thought, nah, I'm not really into it there. Eventually, what I ended up getting was this, Final Fight 1 for the Game Boy Advance. And specifically, this is the Japanese version. And the reason I got that is because the Game Boy Advance Final Fight 1 that you get in North America and Europe has Billy and Sid. They did not put Roxy and Poison back in. This Japanese version has Roxy and Poison. And what I really like about this particular version of Final Fight, because it's designed for a Game Boy Advance, they've reduced some of the numbers of the enemies and stuff, so one player can get through this. And I really, really like this game. This is probably, with the exception of Final Fight, what is it called? There's one for the PlayStation 3 where you can play it online and a buddy can join you on, as you're playing, somebody will just jump into your game. I've got that one as well. That's probably the absolute perfect recreation of Final Fight. But if you don't have online, or if your PS3 is gone, or I don't even think too many people... I did play it in the past month, and I think somebody joined me, so it still has some kind of an online multiplayer component. But let's assume that goes away, and you can't really play that anymore if they turn off the PS3 servers and stuff. The Game Boy Advance one is probably the perfect version. It looks, sounds, and plays a lot like the original Final Fight, but for one player. You could actually get through it on this. And it's got Roxy and Poison. How can you go wrong with that? Oh, and before I forget, I just wanted to say a big thanks and a shout out to John. That's Jawhn. He's a user in the Killer List of Video Games forum group. I was looking for my thumbnail for this video of like a coin box with like a cornucopia of coins flowing out of it. but I couldn't find anything as an image anywhere. And I posted a question saying, hey, does anybody know somewhere I can get such an image? And some of the people replying back were like, you know how much money would have to be inside a coin box to have it flowing with coins? But John, thank you very, very nicely, just threw together very quick photos. So thanks very much for that. And if you look carefully, you can actually make out a bicentennial quarter. I think it's on the corner of the box there. So that's pretty cool. Thanks, John, for that. So there is my video response to Tony over at ElectricAdventures. I'll put a link below to his question and his channel update. And yeah, I thought it was a very interesting question. Not specifically my favorite 3 arcade games, because back then I didn't have that much cash. But these 3 games got the most quarters out of me. I thought it was kind of an interesting little thing. So anyway, that'll do it for now. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.